welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 365, and today's date is May 13th, 2014, and the title of this episode is False Flag Warning, Iran has been sending Chinese-made chlorine gas to Syria. Now, we see what is going on here. I mean, John Kerry was out there. He was telling everyone that they wasted an entire year because they couldn't coordinate the forces to get in there and remove Assad. We see Ukraine. It is completely falling apart. It's not going as planned, and as of right now, they are trying to promote that Assad has been using chemical weapons. And they're continually coming out with reports here and there, and it feels like they're doing the same exact thing they did prior to August of 2013. You kept on hearing about these small little blurbs about, oh yes, Assad used chemical weapons, and if he crosses this red line, yes, Assad used the chemical weapons again, and then we eventually had the big one. It seems like they're doing the same thing again. Of course, the UN Security Council is there in Syria removing the chemical weapons, and of course, the rebels are making it very difficult to remove the last 8%. And of course, we're having reports come in that Assad has been hiding chemical weapons in the Alawite section of Syria, including biological weapons. And of course, yes, we have the FBI director out there and other government officials letting us all know that Syria is the launching pad for Al-Qaeda, for terrorists. They'll be spreading their terror all across Europe and into the United States, and they're continually pushing this agenda forward because they realize they have a certain window of time to do this, and they are losing the battle in Syria. The rebels are being pushed back and back and back, and they are continually funneling weapons for tanks, weapons to take down aircraft, and they're giving them money. They already said, yes, we recognize the opposition as the government. They kicked Syria out of the United States. All the embassies are empty at this time. So we can see what they're planning, and it's a very slow, incremental plan. They're building up. They're letting everyone know, letting it sink into your head that, yes, Assad has been using these weapons again, and he's doing it right out in the open. And they have a little bit of proof. They have some proof. France is out there saying, yes, we're collecting more proof, and they're continually pushing this agenda. They're not going to stop because they realize eventually they're going to have to go full throttle to get this going, and they realize the economy is not doing well. Europe is, teetering on a full-out depression at this time. And when we look at what the Europeans are saying, they're saying, and there was a poll taken, that, the economy out there is absolutely horrible. Two separate polls show that most Europeans have become pessimistic about Europe's economic outlook, with just over a week until the start of the European Parliament elections. The Pew Research Center and the Eurobarometer revealed Monday that the most Europeans are complaining that their voices are not heard in Brussels, the main base of the European Union operations. Majorities in most countries complain that the EU does not understand their needs and is intrusive and inefficient, and they express little enthusiasm for giving the EU greater power or economic issues. Most of the people out there are suffering. The countries are in a huge amount of debt. They're imposing austerity on the people. People can't get work. The unemployment rates are continually rising. They're not falling. And this poll, this Eurobarometer, they went out between March 15th and the 24th and interviewed 28,000 people across the European Union. The Pew Research Center survey was conducted from March 17th to April 9th among 7,000 people across 7 key European Union members: Britain, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Poland, and Spain. And right now they're looking at this and they're saying, you know what? It is not going well. We have no hope in a recovery, in this economy rebounding. We're only seeing it's going to get worse, and it is, because there is no hope and there's no plan, and they're continually being put into more and more debt. So how are they possibly going to get out of this? Their youth unemployment is anywhere between 45 and 60%, depending on which country. And when you look at this, this is the foundation of the countries. Now, if this generation coming up is not employed, they're not going to be buying homes, they're not going to be spending money, they're not going to be saving, and it's just going to get worse. Now, we understand in every one of these European nations, Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Cyprus, they're all doing different things to prop up their economies. They're taxing more people, they're taking precautions, they're diving into the Social Security reserves, and right now Spain is going to spy on 34 million bank accounts. Now, of course, everyone's like, well, what do you mean they're going to spy on 34 million bank accounts? Well, the Spanish government plans to collect data on all of the country's 34 million bank accounts in what it calls a bid to crack down. And of course, this is why they do it. They're cracking down on money laundering and terrorist activities. It's for the safety of the people that we know your account numbers, we know how much you have in your accounts, we know what your spending's like, we have to understand where the money's coming in. This is all for your safety, and we know it is not. We understand why they're doing this. They want an accounting of what is in all of these banks. Why? Because eventually they're coming after your money. Spain plans to set up a German-style archive of data of the financial activity of Spaniards and residents in Spain. The move will see banks having to supply details of all personal and business current accounts, savings accounts, and fixed-term accounts they hold to the Secretary of State for the Economy. So, again, this is all wrapped around these bail-in documents. They want to know where all this money is because they're going to come after it eventually. And this is why they're doing this at this time. And we have to remember, all across the world right now in the private Western central bank world, they all have bail-in documents ready because they realize the amount of debt that these countries have taken on cannot be sustained. And these economies are faltering, imploding, completely crumbling apart, and they realize this. And this is why they put all these bail-in documents in place. And if you look, a lot of the banks right now are starting to change their terms of service. Actually, someone on the People Forum, they said their GE Capital bank account, they changed the terms of service there where they can't transfer money or they can't move money, and they have to report why they're transferring this money. And I mean, if we look at this, they're doing this all over the place. And if you look at some of the bank terms, like in Bank of America, Citibank, they're also adding things about, cyber attacks, we're not responsible, terrorism, we're not responsible. But I always thought banks were to keep your money safe. I thought you put it in there, and I remember way back, they had the big safe, your money goes back into the safe, they lock it down, they keep it safe. But of course, that's not what banks are there for today. And again, what they're doing is they're robbing you from the inside now. And this is why they're changing the terms of service and making it look like they're trying to keep your money safe. But they're really going to go after your money once this entire economy completely crumbles and falls apart. Now, when we look at housing, we understand that housing is imploding. It is slowly coming down. We see mortgage originations down by 66%. The revenue from these mortgage originations completely falling apart in all the big banks. We see that new construction, home prices are starting to come down. Now, this is not the same in every area, and I know I say this quite a bit, but every single area will see a different decline in price type of scenario. Back in 2007, 2008, in the northeast section of America, you saw housing prices start to come down. The traffic started to slow. But in the south, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, you didn't see this. It was still booming. And then eventually it trickled to those areas. And now we're seeing it happen in many different areas. Some areas still good. Some areas, they still have the high prices. They're starting to come down a little bit. But right after this summer, it's going to be a totally different story. They will not be able to stop it, just like in 2008. The whole thing will start to implode because there are just no Americans out there really buying houses, because we can tell by the data that's coming in where the youth of America, they can't even find jobs out of college. And as this spreads from generation to generation, it will get worse. The people who had homes are now wiped out. Their credit's ruined. They lost 38% of their wealth, and their houses were foreclosed or short-saled, and they're not rebounding right now. They're just trying to make ends meet. And right now, what they're seeing right now is that mortgage origination as a business has virtually slammed shut. The Fed confirmed as much when it reported just $332 billion in originations in Q1, well below the $452 billion in Q4 of 2013, and certainly below the $577 billion a year ago. So we can see, if we look at this graph, what do we see? We see a year ago mortgage originations at $577 billion. Just in December, it was at 452. The first quarter of this year, it's down to 332, and it's going to continually decline as time goes on. It is not going to get better, because we can see from all the indicators of the youth coming in and those people trying to look for work, they're not getting the high-paid jobs because they're not there. Those people who are being laid off in Barclays, RBS, UBS, Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, Dell, Sony, all the retail stores closing down, laying off thousands upon thousands of people. All of these people are going to add to the mix more foreclosures as time goes on, because it's going to be very, very difficult for them to find work at this time. And if we look past this and we look at the student loan debt, is just skyrocketing. And I discussed this in previous reports, but if we look at this, those who are 90 days delinquent, it's over $1.2 trillion. So what we're seeing here is those students who are out there looking for work, they cannot pay their student loan. They have no money. If they can't do that, how do you expect them to go to the retail stores and buy goods? If they can't go out and buy goods, how are they going to save money? If they can't save money, how are they going to purchase a house? It all comes back to that. They can't find a job. They're working at a job that is lower salary. I'll give you an example. My wife's cousin graduated Binghamton University. He got a job at $14 an hour out of college. He graduates this month. The only job right now that he can find is at $14 an hour, and it's not full-time. They're not giving him 40 hours a week, because then they would have to pay for some type of health benefit. So they're giving him a part-time job. They're splitting it between two people, and he's making $14 an hour. And yes, he does have student loans, and he needs to pay these back. Of course, he's living with his parents because he can't go out and afford an apartment, a car, and work. So we can see how this is taking its toll on the young generation, and it is not going to get better as time goes on. Now, I just spoke about retail sales, and the data came in about retail. And let's just say all that pent-up demand that they were talking about because of the bad weather is not here. We're not seeing it whatsoever. Actually, retail sales are getting worse. And we understand why they're getting worse. It's because people don't have the money. But if we look at the data right now, retail sales missed expectations, with ex-auto and gas actually dropping by 0.1%. The broad weakness was led by furniture and home furnishings by negative 0.6%. Now that's strange, because if the housing market is booming, usually what people do is they decorate their houses and they purchase furniture. But we're seeing a decline in that. Why? Because the hedge fund and investment companies are purchasing these houses in cash. They don't care about the house. They're holding on to them. If they can rent them, they rent them. If not, they let them sit. This is why we're seeing furniture manufacturers go out of business. This is why we're seeing a decrease in home furnishing and furniture. We're seeing a decrease in sales in electronics and appliance. They're down by negative 2.3%. So what are we looking at here? People are not going out to Best Buy and all these stores to purchase the big ticket item because they just don't have the money. Now, if we look at these sales during January and April, what we're seeing here is retail sales in January is down about negative 0.4%. and online retails was down about negative 0.6%. Now, of course, those people sitting in their house, you would think they would be purchasing on the internet because it's snowing, it's cold, you're sitting there in your house, and you know what, let's go shopping. But again, we didn't see this. We didn't see what everyone was talking about. Now, they said, oh, after this winter weather, this was the blame of the economy, the downturn in the economy, we're going to see an improvement in retail sales, in housing, and in everything. But what we're seeing right now, retail sales down negative 0.1%. Online sales, negative 0.9%. So I guess the online sales, they're going to be blaming this on the warmer weather. People are going outside now, and they're not spending their time inside shopping. Now, you would think then people would be running to the stores and buying from the brick and mortar businesses, but we're not seeing that either. Not at all. So what does that tell you? We have big problems here. And going through the summer, retail sales are pretty darn bad during the summer months. Real estate usually ticks up going through the spring and the first half of the summer, and then it starts dropping off. And I'm going to say we're going to see a slight bump in real estate, but not much, and then it's going to start to completely implode on itself afterwards, just like we saw in the year of 2008. I don't think there's any difference at this time. Well, I do. There is one big difference, is that the people are worse off. People have part-time jobs, or they're completely unemployed. They lost 38% of their wealth. They have foreclosures, short sales, the credit's ruined. So, yeah, I guess we're worse off. Oh, and the youth of America, they can't find work. So, yes, we are worse off at this time. Now, what's very interesting, and I saw this in Economic Policy Journal, where the BLS, you know, they figure out the unemployment, labor statistics, the price index, inflation, and all that. Now, someone took a picture in that building where they work, and they figure out all this information out. And it was a picture of the cafeteria sign. And what they're saying is because of rising prices and costs, that they're going to have to raise their prices by May 19th of 2014. And what's very interesting is they continually tell us there's no inflation. And right in the same building, in the cafeteria, there's a sign that someone took a picture of saying that, yes, they're going to have to raise prices because all the prices are going up. Unbelievable. And again, all the products that we see, I do track products, and a lot of them are flatline because what they've been doing is they've been swapping ingredients. They're making products smaller, so you're not seeing the rise in price. But I do see the rise in milk. Milk has been going up quite a bit. And I know people write me in that other products are going up, but I just went to the supermarket today and I saw that milk was at $4.25, and this is at the market by me. It went up to $4.29. It feels like every 2-3 weeks it's going up like 4 or 5 cents. So now I'm up to $4.29 for a gallon of milk. Other products like coffee or tuna fish, it seems like they're swapping out ingredients, using different things. Ice cream, they're shrinking down. I noticed that packages, if you look at the number of ounces, they're a little bit smaller now. They're not packing them the same. And we can see that they're continually trying to do this until that kind of comes to a screeching halt where they can't do it anymore, and they eventually then have to raise the prices. Now, the Fed is out there once again, letting us all know that, you know, we're going to continually taper. We see good progress with the economy, and they continually bring this up over and over again. And they brought it up one more time here. They said that economic conditions in the United States would have to shift dramatically for the Federal Reserve to change the rate at which it is winding down its money printing program. Now, this is not the first time they've said this, and it seems like they're continually letting us know that something dramatic is going to happen, and this would allow them to change their program at this time, and then, you know, increase QE, which they're already doing in back channels at this time. And this went on to say that it would take a rather dramatic change to adjust the tapering of the Fed's monthly bond purchases, Dennis Locklear, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, said. So they're continually letting us know that they would only change something if something dramatic happens. Now, what could that be? What dramatic thing could happen? I mean, the real estate market crash, they already know that. They're the ones who are pumping it up. They're the ones who control it. The stock market crash, they already know. That's going to come down because they're the ones who created it. It's the illusion. All the numbers that they're creating, well, again, they've created this illusion. They know exactly what's going on. I think what they're saying is if some outside event should occur and bring down the economy, they would have to step in and increase quantitative easing to save the economy. This is what I think their message is. I think this is what they've been trying to tell us. And what's very interesting is that they're continually telling us that they are tapering. They're scaling back another 10 billion, another 10 billion. But like I said, when we looked out at Belgium, we realized that they've been purchasing bonds. So they've been channeling the money from the taper over to Belgium. But the other thing they've been doing is they've been increasing it each time. The Federal Reserve bond purchases during November 2013 through January 2014 were $112 billion per month. During those 3 months, there was a sharp rise in bond purchases by the Fed. The Fed's actual bond purchases for those 3 months are $27 billion per month, above the original $85 billion monthly purchase, and $47 billion above the official $65 billion monthly purchase at that time. Some countries or country, unknown at this time, has dumped about $104 billion in treasuries in 1 week. So they've been moving the money out to Belgium, and they've been increasing the amount of quantitative easing out there. So yes, here in the United States it looks like they're tapering, but actually as they come down 10 billion, they're increasing it out in Belgium to keep up with the treasury bond dump. So we can see what is happening. They're trying to keep up, and they're purchasing these bonds from these countries that are dumping them at this time. So we know for a fact they are not tapering whatsoever. They're actually increasing what they're doing. So the economy is completely dead. There is nothing happening here. And the countries around the world are starting to realize, wow, the dollar is dying. We need to get rid of these treasuries. And every single country is taking precautions at this time. Now, out in Indiana, it seems that they're getting a new helicopter. The Indiana National Guard has purchased 2 military UH-72 Lakota helicopters, which will also be used by the local law enforcement and DHS, of course, for homeland security missions. The chopper is renowned for maneuverability and power, and it has special features. It has sophisticated sensor technology used for automatic target tracking that can spot a weapon or read a license plate from a distance. How interesting. So they're getting this helicopter, and DHS will be allowed to use it for their special missions. The onboard system can also transmit live video feed to a ground station up to 30 miles away, while an individual can easily be followed via high-power searchlights linked up with a sensor system. Now we can see what's happening here. DHS is continuously acquiring electronics, tanks, powerful observation, and weapons systems. They are continually doing this. They're bringing all the local law enforcements into compliance to work with them. DHS right now is lying dormant. They do absolutely nothing but spend money. They are not needed at this point. They have fusion centers all set up. When they are activated, and they're going to be activated by the government because they were completely created and designed to be the military police of the government, they will be activated when this collapse occurs, or a little bit beforehand. They will go to the local authorities, and they will get the lists of people that they believe might be a threat to the authorities. They also will cross-reference their lists. They will put your information into their database system. In the beginning, they will come after those people just like they have been doing in Ukraine. The local law enforcement gave lists to the anti-terrorism groups so they can go after those people who they deem as a threat to the authority figures in that country. And we're going to see the same thing happen here. And every day we see DHS acquiring more sophisticated weapons to keep an eye on the people and detect if there are weapons around, and if they need to send a force into that area, because we're seeing and we're understanding that there are weapons, and there's quite a bit of them, because it could be a militia, it could be a group of people, and this is how they will start using this technology all around. Now, out in Ukraine, what we are seeing out there is the southeastern region had a referendum, and they're saying we're completely separate and apart from the puppet government. And of course, United States central bankers do not want to let this happen. They're, objecting to all of this. And at the same time all this is happening, the European Commission is receiving about 1.6 billion euros in macroeconomic loans available to the Ukraine. The loans will be provided to Ukraine's national bank over the next 15 years. And, as soon as they signed this document, they received about 250 million euros, and it was transferred over to Ukraine. And of course, this is all being used to stabilize the economy and to help the people, which we know is completely fake, false, and phony. We know the people are going to get absolutely no help. Prices, I should say, the value of their currency is continually declining, and we see energy costs are going up, and it's making it more and more difficult for the people to make ends meet, just like in Cyprus, Greece, Spain, France, and all the other areas. And now, since Crimea and the southeastern section of Ukraine has been voted away, it is making it much harder for United States government, central bankers, the EU, to say, okay, this is going to be a prospering western section of Ukraine, because they're missing the production, they're missing the natural resources, they're pretty much missing everything that they wanted. And again, what's happening right now in Ukraine, it is getting worse for the people. I know money's coming in, but the bankers are using the money for other things. They're not using it for the people. Now, Gazprom says, Ukraine missed their payment, and now they are creating a prepayment system, and they're sending them a bill for $1.66 billion, and they must pay this on June 2nd, or gas supplies could be shut off by June 3rd at this time. Now, of course, Yatsenyuk is out there, and he's the prime minister that was put into power by Victoria Nuland and others way before the coup d'etat, and he's saying, you know what, we will pay this gas bill, but the only way we'll pay it is if you give us the discounted price of $268 per 1,000 cubic meters. Then we'll pay the bill. But again, Russia had this deal with Ukraine for the use of the base in Crimea. So Russia gave a discount to Ukraine for the use of the base in Crimea. Now Crimea belongs to Russia, so there's no reason for the discount. And we'll have to see what happens. Now they're fighting over price of what they want to pay and what they don't want to pay. And of course, that June 2nd date's coming up pretty darn fast, and we will see what happens. Now, something very interesting. We understand that Joe Biden visited Ukraine, and we understand that CIA and FBI is also there, NATO's there. But Joe Biden just so happened to visit Ukraine. He was in Kiev, and we learned today that his son, who is now part of Burisma Holdings, Ukraine's largest private gas producer, has expanded its board of directors by bringing on Mr. R. Hunter Biden as a new director. How interesting that this happened right now. R. Hunter Biden will be in charge of the holdings legal unit and will provide support for the company among international organizations. He worked for a law firm, Schiller and Flexner LLP, a national law firm based in New York. And Burisma Holdings is a privately owned oil and gas company with assets in Ukraine and operating in the energy market since 2002. But how interesting. His father went out to Ukraine, who's the Vice President of the United States, and now all of a sudden his son is part of the board. Now, we understand that Russia is not going to impose sanctions on the United States because President Putin said, we are not going to do that. So he decided to do something else. Russia will not extend its partnership in the International Space Station beyond 2020. Moscow is banning Washington from using Russian-made rocket engines, which the U.S. has used to deliver its military satellites into orbit. Russia is also halting the operation of all American GPS stations on its territory from June 1st. Russia currently hosts 11 ground-based GPS stations. The Deputy Prime Minister said the Pentagon has no great solution to reduce its dependence on Russian-made engine that powers the rocket used to launch U.S. military satellites. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel ordered the Air Force to review its reliance on the rocket engine. And when they're looking at this, they realize that they are dependent on Russia. And Putin once said, everything in the world is interdependent, and once you try to punish someone, in the end, you will cut off your nose to spite your face. And this was coming from Putin, and we can see that it's posing problems. I mean, United States central bankers, they're out there, they're putting these plans into action, trying to overthrow governments, trying to prop up the EU, prop up the dollar, and all these plans are completely falling apart and not going well. Now, there was an assassination attempt on the newly formed government in Luhansk, and the people's governor was... They tried to take a shot at him. They tried to assassinate him, but he is okay. They didn't get him. And we can see what is happening here. They're using all types of force. They're using black water. They're using paid mercenaries inside of Ukraine to get their mission moving forward. And it's completely falling apart every time they try to push this forward. It's not working out right now. And Kiev right now is refusing to engage in dialogue with the Donetsk area. They're saying we're not going to be speaking to them, and we have nothing to say, and there's no reason to at this time because they don't recognize them. The United States does not recognize them. The EU does not recognize them. And again, Kiev authorities dismiss heads of Donetsk regional administrations. They're saying that nope, they're still part of Ukraine. We're not going by what the people really want. And of course, during the overthrow of Ukraine with the coup d'etat, the United States was out there saying, let the people speak. They need democracy, freedom. And now this people spoke in the southeastern section, and they want to have nothing to do with it whatsoever. Now, NATO is taking the Ukrainian crisis to Moldova. Moldova's breakaway region has said he brought to Moscow a petition with some 30,000 signatures asking Russia to recognize the region. Transnistria, a self-proclaimed state which broke away from Moldova in 1990, has long sought to join Russia. NATO warned Moscow against any attempt to bring Moldova's breakaway Transnistria region closer to Russia. NATO has already issued another warning to Russia demanding to respect Moldova's territorial integrity. And Moldova's president, who is in bed with the United States and the EU, has said, you know what, we will be joining the EU, the 28-nation European Union, despite what is going on. Of course, they looked at this. Let's take a look at the European Union. Most of the countries are in a huge amount of debt. They have austerity, people living on the streets, high unemployment. There's no hope. And yeah, this is a good place to go here. This is perfect for us. Let's join up. Now, Iran and Pakistan right now, they are creating a pipeline deal. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani on Sunday agreed to complete the Iran-Pakistan gas pipeline project. And we'll have to see as this goes forward. I wonder what funds or currency they're going to be using to purchase this oil. Most likely it will not be the U.S. dollar. Now, yesterday in the report, we talked about that the State Department is sending explosives to unknown locations. Well, it could be embassies where they are going. And right now, the officials were asked to explain these large purchases. Questions about the U.S. State Department's planned purchase of hundreds of pounds of plastic explosives and thousands of containers of liquid explosives were met Monday with laughter, then silence, as the agency declined to explain its intentions for the destructive materials. So you want to know what the State Department is doing with these explosives? Well, they could possibly be going to Blackwater. They may be the recipient of these explosives, possibly through Antwerp, which isn't far from NATO headquarters in Brussels, Matson said in an interview. Blackwater, which became XE before changing to Academy, I like just calling them Blackwater, it's much easier, had State Department contracts which are now held by Academy. So we can see that these explosives could be heading any place. They could be going to Ukraine in that area to create some type of false flag event. We understand that there was some type of dirty bomb type of false flag event being ready to be moved forward. This could be helping. They might be smuggling this in because we understand they are smuggling in weapons. They have paid mercenaries in Ukraine. They also could be sending these explosives to all different types of embassies at this time because there's a lot of explosives. And this could be used to say, yes, look, the launching pad in Syria, they're hitting embassies all across the world. They hit the United States with some type of terrorist attack, and we can see how they will push their agenda to get this war started, and they're continually doing this. Now, out in France, to push this whole false flag forward with Syria, and we see that the Western officials and France and Germany and other countries are all jumping on Assad using chemical weapons again. And we saw this back in 2013 prior to August of 2013. We saw this in May, June, July leading up to it. So here we are, France's top diplomat is accusing the Syrian government of using chemical weapons to attack its people at least 14 times since last October. Now, you have to remember, during October, this time period, in September, October, they were in negotiations of having Assad relinquish his chemical weapons and have them destroyed. So they're saying that he was still using them during that time period. And again, the whole story doesn't fit. They never had proof. And of course, they're out there saying that it's very hard to get proof, but we do have witnesses, credible eyewitnesses, because you have to remember, chlorine gas evaporates, and it's very hard to collect this evidence. Well, of course it is, because this is all being used as propaganda for the next false flag event. And of course, Western intelligence officials suspect that Iran has been sending Chinese-made chlorine gas to Syria in a bid to bolster President Assad's war against opposition forces. So here they are in one statement. They're implicating Iran, they're implicating China and Syria together for committing chemical weapon attacks. And we can see why they're doing this. They are demonizing these specific countries. Why? Because they will be creating some type of an event coming up. And we can see they are continually using this propaganda. They have not stopped, and they're letting us know that Syria, China, and Iran are all involved. Because we have to remember, Iran and Syria, they do have a pact. If Syria gets into a war, Iran says they will come and to the aid of Syria. We also have to understand that Russia does back Syria, and China will back Iran and Syria. So we can see the players are pretty much always the same when it comes to these type of countries. Of course, these countries are the countries that do not have a private Western central bank, and they're not involved in the EU or the dollar. This is why they're trying to maneuver their way into these countries. Any country that does not have a private Western central bank, the private Western central bank conglomerate, the elite, the globalists, those countries are the enemy. And this is how they do this all across the globe. And if you look in all the different countries, every single country is an enemy if they do not have the private Western central bank and they don't put their natural resources on the U.S. dollar. Because this is the way they prop up the system. They move the debt forward by loaning out more money, helping with infrastructure, and they loan all this money out to the people, And of course they have to repay this money with interest. And of course you can't get extra money because there's a certain amount of money that's loaned out, so they have to borrow more, and this cycle continually goes forward. It doesn't stop, and this is why we're at this point right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.